What's up? It's hashtag Ask Lauren. Okay guys, so I thought I would compile a few of the questions regarding relationships and answer these questions in a relationship themed Ask Lauren. Lex and Little said, how did you become such a secure person? I struggle with being a secure person in relationships because I tend to carry issues from past relationships. I tend to be a needy person and I don't like to do things alone. I am realizing it's not who I want to be in relationships at all, and I wanted to ask you because you seem to have a pretty good balance of alone and together time. I don't even know if I'm really that secure of a person, to be honest. I'm pretty secure when I'm single. It's not really until you're in a relationship that you start to see what all of your sort of hot buttons are, or your triggers are, or whatever. And so you start to become very vulnerable in a relationship, and that's probably why you feel insecure and needy, because you've opened up so much to somebody. So when you feel like they're not there for you, it's almost like 10 times as worse feeling emotionally. At least I think that's the case. That's how I kind of am. It's sort of just something that I think comes with experience and more time, and also pretty much the answer to every single relationship question is communication, right? I think you need to talk about that with your partner, like talk about that you feel that way, and maybe that's why you're acting a certain way that they don't like maybe you're acting angry or annoying or irritating or clingy or needy or whiny or any of these things, and maybe you just need to explain why you're kind of reacting the way you are to certain things, and you can just say, well, I just feel like, just explain how you feel. I feel like you're not there for me, or I feel like you're gonna leave me, or like whatever. I think it's fine. You need to be sort of that open and that vulnerable about your insecurities within the relationship in order to overcome them. This one, well, I don't know. This person wrote it all out here in the comments, so I guess you want me to talk about it. They said, for 2.5 years, I was in a relationship with someone who I thought would be the love of my life. We had an amazing connection, and he was my best friend. However, our lives began to take different directions this year, and whilst I felt ready for us to move in, he chose a path that would call for us to do long distance, and this was something that I did not want. My resistance led to a total breakdown in our relationship. It's been 9 weeks, although this was posted 2 months ago, since we broke up, and he almost entirely cut off communication. My heart is broken and I've been left so confused. He used to talk all the time about us spending the rest of our lives together. Do you have any advice as to how to recover from this? And do you believe that in such circumstances, two people can ever become realigned? Well, I'm very sorry to hear about this. I hear stories from people that I know and friends that I know where they're in a relationship and everything's going great, and sometimes maybe it's only 2 months long, but in your case it's 2 years long. So it is very strange, I think, when you're that close with somebody and you've spent that much time together, for them to just go away and cut you off so abruptly. My only explanation would be maybe this guy is going through his own personal midlife crisis or things, and he's not grown up enough to talk about them with you, so he thinks that just by cutting you off and going it alone, that maybe he'll figure it out, and maybe he will and maybe he won't. And so unfortunately, it's a very sad, devastating situation, and I understand you, but at the same time, you can't always take things personally, because I think a lot of the time when something like that happens, it really isn't you, it is that person. It's that person going through something. That person has some sort of mental or emotional block, and unfortunately they're just willing to cut off love and kind of go with their anxiety and their worry and their practicality, as opposed to choosing love in that moment. And if they just chose love in that moment, they would probably realize that there's a lot more healing that could be done. People are so afraid to be vulnerable, and people are so afraid to let go and fall in love truly, like become love and extend love, that we run away from a lot of things, and we turn our back and we push away because we're afraid to love. We're afraid of what's going to happen if we just surrender. So I think that sounds like what's happened to your partner, unfortunately, but here's what you can learn from that, is that you know that you're now ready to choose love. You're ready for somebody. You're ready for a commitment. You're ready, and you want somebody in your life who's going to love you and be vulnerable and commit and grow together and all that stuff. And so if you can hang on to those feelings that you did have for this other person, and somehow try to let go of the fact that it's that person, but keep those same feelings within your heart, you can really quickly maybe attract somebody new who is better suited to you. That being said, I also do think sometimes people become realigned again, but you really can't control that, and you really can't force the other person to talk to you or change their situation. And the more you force and attach and kind of cling to that, the further you really are from who you truly are. And so the harder it will seem, and the more defeated you will feel when it doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen. And so the best thing to do is, like I said, hold on to those feelings that you do have for that person, and try to just think about them in more of a general way, and how good that makes you feel, and how you want to keep feeling that. And maybe somebody will kind of be magnetized to you or attracted to you because of that. It's basically manifesting love. And if the more you love and the more you express those kinds of feelings outwardly and very generally to everybody and everything, then you're only going to attract more love into your life. And maybe that person wasn't right because they're not ready to love. So here's a good one. Kate from, I don't know her name, but she says, this one needs to jump to the front of your list. I feel like you would give a real answer because maybe you have this problem too. Girls who can't stop saying negative comments toward their guys, nagging, criticizing, or even joking at their expense. I feel like so many women get caught in the habit of constantly criticizing, and I find myself doing it as well. I see so many of my friends do it. Why do we do this? I always have to pick at my husband, pointing things out he's doing, wearing, or saying. Sometimes it's even my way of flirting. What the fuck? That doesn't even make any sense. I hate it and I can't stop doing it. Help. Okay, I totally do it too. It's basically emasculating. We are emasculating men, and I just started reading this book called Queen's Code. My friend Natalie recommended it to me, and she was recommended it by somebody else. And it basically talks about this exact problem that you have and that I have and that almost every woman has with men. Basically, we've somehow grown up to hate men, probably from father things and other figures in our lives, and the fact that women always feel like we're not good enough in comparison to men. So we develop this attitude that we need to compete with them, and we don't. And so it's called The Queen's Code. Who's it by? Alison Armstrong. I'll link it below. You can order the PDF online. But it's kind of helped me. I already knew I had this issue, this problem that you have, that we kind of all have. And then when I started reading this book, it basically talks about how we push our partners away because, and over time things become very distant because we've emasculated these guys, and then they distance themselves. And maybe that sometimes leads to cheating, because cheating obviously is more of an emotional thing than a physical thing. It's wanting to feel wanted and wanting to feel like a man and all this stuff. And when you're with somebody who makes you not feel like a man, and ultimately men need to feel like men. This book essentially says women are upholding men to this standard that they're the perfect woman. And men, of course, are not women. They are men. They have different brains. They have different ways of doing things, ways of thinking, but except we expect them to be like the perfect woman. And we even compare ourselves to this so-called perfect woman. It's a lot to explain. You should read the book. It really helps you kind of wrap your head around your behavior and what you're doing. I'm kind of working on it. This is what I've been working on my whole life in every relationship. John's extremely patient and understanding, and he doesn't take things personally, because the thing is I'm not always attacking him personally. I'm attacking, but it could be any guy. It's going to be any guy that I'm with, anyone I'm that close with. It's not just John. But I love John, so why do I treat him like that? You love your partner. Why do you treat him like that? Your husband or whatever. But there are a lot of layers of issues and sort of just habitual attitude changes that need to happen. So I recommend this book, The Queen's Code. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know why we do these things, other than the fact that I've made men or a man to be the enemy, probably since being a child. And I do think that that's a lot of women's attitudes. And I'm not saying that this just, maybe it stems from the feminist movement. I honestly don't really know, and I don't want to get into the psychology of this, but the inequality has made us more fighters instead of peaceful warriors. We're strong, and men are strong as well, and we don't need to butt heads. We can get along and have cooperative relationships and really good communication if we understand how to communicate with men. And so that's what this book is about. There's also a book called The Way of the Superior Man, which is a book for men to read, except I really liked reading it as a woman, and maybe you can get your husband to read it. It talks about how men should deal with women and how their brains work and how they're more of like these waves of emotion type things. So I'll mention both books in the description. You guys can check them out. I'm not an expert. I'm honestly juvenile when it comes to relationships, and I certainly know more about objectively looking at someone else's relationship and helping and giving advice and being able to see where the issues are. In my own life, I am becoming a lot more aware of things, but I think I'm less willing to address them or change them because I'm older and I'm kind of stuck in my ways a little bit. Katie Watson said, could you do a video on what you do when your partner's away for long periods of time? I know John travels for work and mine's about to go away to America for 9 weeks when normally we spend every day together. I feel like I answered this question. Maybe I didn't. But yeah, John travels. John's like never here basically. I feel like when he is working a lot, I just feel like we're roommates and we haven't really figured out what the best solution to that is so that we don't feel so disconnected, but I do, because I actually do like spending a lot of time with John. He's the only person I can spend more than a day with, pretty much. So I don't know how I deal with it. I have to deal with it, but I become an insane person during those periods of time. If John's gone on trips where he's gone for a month and we barely even talk, and then when we do talk, it's just like it's not even good because I feel like there's like built up resentment and then like we can't even have a regular nice conversation. It just ends up turning into a fight. So I don't really know how you deal with it other than have a lot of great hobbies and interests and TV shows and friends so that you don't have to like worry about talking to your partner when they're away if they can't talk to you. I guess you also just have to kind of like send those flirty texts and try to you have to make the effort to like be intimate or whatever, like even if it's long distance or like over the phone and that kind of thing, because that's what's going to make you feel close, as opposed to like they're off doing something and then you get jealous and weird and insecure. So I don't know, sorry, that's not a very good answer because I don't even really know what I do. I turn kind of weird when John's gone for a long time. Linda F said, not sure if you've talked about this before. Can you talk about what it's like to work with your significant other, referring to offer food that you manage with John? What are the difficulties? Are there any? And also would be great to hear general advice when it comes to starting your own business. Okay, well that's another video. But in terms of relationships, working with your partner, everybody I talk to who works with their partner in the YouTube space fights with their partner. It's not talked about, but everybody does. I've talked to everybody about it. There are some people who've worked through it and they're now good. I think we can get to a place where it's a lot smoother and it's starting to happen, but John and I do fight when we're working together. We butt heads. He thinks he's right. I think I'm right. He doesn't like me telling him what to do, but that's just who I am. So I have to work on my communication and he has to work on his flexibility. And yeah, it's sometimes very difficult, but the weird thing is we also really like doing it and we like the end product and we like hot for food and we kind of want to see it through. It's getting to the point where John's just basically too stressed out because he already works full time and then he shoots hot for food on the weekends or like on his one day off with me. And so I think we have to get to a point where I have another crew, where I use another camera guy. But so far, I really only like what John creates for us, and I'm a little bit scared about hiring a camera person. So anyways, I haven't found anybody. And then I know couples who have, they used to fight all the time, and they're like got to that breaking point of like, we can't do this anymore, and then something just gave way and something changed, and then they were more peaceful and nice to each other while they worked together. But every person I know on YouTube almost works with their significant other. And they all have difficulties because how could you not? You're so intertwined. There's resentment intertwined about personal things and house things and relationship things, and then you work together and it's not even about work and it's not even about cooperation. It's about everything that your relationship encompasses. So it's very hard to disconnect that, because then if you disconnect that, then you just become business partners and then you feel weird like you're just business partners. And why are we in a relationship? John and I are going through this right now in terms of trying to figure out the solutions and trying to figure out the best way to communicate and trying to figure out that balance so that we don't ruin our relationship because of YouTube. And it's not that extreme yet. I'm making it sound worse than it is, but we are in the middle of this now where we're kind of trying to figure out what do we do? Like, how do we keep this going? We're shooting Thursday and Friday all day, so hopefully all goes well. Thing is any disagreements we have, they blow over, everything goes back to normal, and everything's fine. But like in the heat of the moment when you're like trying to do something and like I want something one way and he's trying to collaborate with me or whatever, that's where sometimes we bicker. Well, I think all good couples bicker. The other weird thing is also, you know that I'm argumentative and you know that I have ragey tendencies, and what was I gonna say? And so it's my default. Like, it is my default to want to argue, which I don't want to be that person, but I really don't know. I haven't figured it out. I don't know how to let go of that yet, or how I adjust that. I have adjusted it a little bit here and there, and I have my moments. So, you know, I grew up listening to my parents argue, so in my mind, it's so ingrained in me. I just need to change I shouldn't be even saying this out loud, but like basically, it's so ingrained in me that it's normal to fight. So that's just what I'm used to listening to, and that's kind of what I've adopted as normal. I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the only person out there that is that way. And lastly, Casey said, have you and John ever gone through a rough patch or a period of time in your relationship when it was not at its fullest potential and not ideal? Absolutely. We've taken on some big stuff ever since we have been together, for food, purchasing a home and renovating it. And there's been, I mean, I don't know what you classify as a rough patch. Like, we've never separated or like taken a break or anything like that. But, you know, I feel like right now we are riding a bit of a wave of like trying to figure out how to communicate with you. Like, I feel like at that 3-year mark, which we're at, that's kind of where you start hitting another point of like reassessment. Now we live together, our businesses are intertwined. Like, there's so much more at stake and involved right now, and things start to become so much more personal and everything. And so that just raises your emotions and your vulnerabilities. And I think right now we are in this phase of like, we might not be able to keep going the way we've been going. So what are we going to do to change that? And so what is that? Is that therapy? Is that less work? Is that John not doing Hoffer food? I don't know. It's not like in a dire situation. It's just personally what we're going through right now. We kind of got to figure it out. But again, we don't need to figure it out. It will figure itself out if we're open, if we just focus on what we want. So I just focus on what I want and what I envision. And then I trust that my attitude and my behavior and things will line up to manifest that which I want. And that's really all you can do. I don't need to really try to do anything. I just have to keep the goal in mind, which is I want to run Hoffer Food with John. I want it to get bigger. I want us to fight less and work better together. And that's really just what I have to hold close and think about that and focus on that, which is why earlier I was saying I shouldn't even be saying some of this stuff out loud, because the more you talk about something you do not like, the worse it gets. So anyways, that's all the relationship questions. I did get pretty personal and revealing there, but it's just the reality of my life and what happens. I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary or anything strange. So if you have any more relationship questions, send them through. #AskLauren in the comments below so I can find them. And that's it. I'll see you guys Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. Bye.